She married him hoping for love. He married her already convinced she would betray him. And when the lie was planted, he destroyed her without listening. This is not a love story. It's a story about what happens when trust dies first. A marriage built on silence. Anaya learned very early in life that silence could be louder than words. In the orphanage, silence meant you were forgotten. It meant no one was coming for you. It meant learning to swallow your fears and cry quietly into your pillow so no one would complain that you were being difficult. So when the Rathore family chose her, Anaya didn't question fate. She was 18 when she first heard the name Aryan Rathore, the heir to a powerful corporate empire, known for his cold intelligence and ruthless discipline. People spoke about him in hushed admiration, as if he were not a man but a force. He doesn't believe in love, the matron warned her gently. He believes in control. Anaya nodded and smiled. She had lived her whole life without love. She could survive without it again. The wedding was nothing like the fairy tales she used to imagine as a child. There were no stolen glances. No shy smiles. No warmth. Aryan stood beside her in his tailored black sherwani, tall and distant, his expression carved from stone. He didn't look at her, not when the garlands were exchanged, not when vows were spoken, not even when the priest declared them husband and wife. Anaya's hands trembled slightly as she held the ritual flowers. This is just the beginning, she told herself. Love grows. Love can be learned. But when she dared to glance at Aryan, she felt something heavy settle in her chest. His eyes held no curiosity, no interest, only restraint. That night, the Rathore mansion welcomed her like a stranger. The bedroom was vast, expensive, and painfully empty. The bed between them felt like a border neither was meant to cross. Aryan loosened his cufflinks in silence. This marriage exists only on paper, he said finally, his voice calm but sharp. My parents wanted an obedient wife. You fit the requirement. Anaya clasped her hands together. I didn't marry you for money, she said quietly. He turned, amused. Everyone says that. I married you because I wanted a family, she replied. That word changed everything. Aryan's jaw tightened. Don't use that word with me. Anaya flinched. You will stay out of my business, he continued. You will not ask questions. You will not interfere. And you will not expect affection. She nodded slowly, forcing strength into her spine. I understand. He studied her then, for the first time, like someone inspecting an object he hadn't asked for. Good, he said. That will make this easier. Aryan left the room, locking the door behind him. Anaya sat on the edge of the bed long after the lights went out. Days passed. Aryan was a ghost in his own home. He left before sunrise and returned late at night, sometimes not at all. When he did come home, he spoke only when necessary. His eyes never softened. His presence felt heavy, suffocating. Still, Anaya tried. She learned his routines from the staff. Learned that he drank black coffee, hated noise, and worked late. She cooked meals he never touched. Waited for him to come home. Sometimes she slept on the couch, afraid to claim the bed he clearly didn't want to share. One evening she gathered courage. I made dinner, she said softly as he walked past her. He stopped. Don't do that, Aryan said. Do what? She asked. Act like this matters, he replied coldly. This marriage is a convenience. Don't complicate it. Her throat tightened. I'm not trying to. You're trying, he interrupted. And I don't like it. That night, Anaya cried silently, staring at the ceiling. Aryan watched her more than she realized. He noticed how she avoided expensive jewelry. How she thanked the staff with genuine warmth. How she flinched when voices were raised. And that scared him. People were never this gentle without expecting something in return. One night, after a long meeting and too much alcohol, he snapped. You're pretending, he accused her suddenly. You think I don't see through you? Anaya froze. Pretending what? This innocence, he said harshly. You didn't come from nothing and end up here by chance. I didn't plan this, she whispered. Of course you did, he scoffed. Girls like you always do. The words hit harder than a slap. She didn't defend herself. She simply walked away. Aryan didn't follow. Later that night, alone in his office, Aryan stared at his reflection. He hated how unsettled she made him. Hated how her quiet hurt reminded him of things he had buried deep. Betrayals, lies, people who claimed to love him only to stab him in the back. He would not make the same mistake again. If love was a weakness, he would destroy it before it destroyed him. And Anaya, unknowingly, had walked straight into the war he had declared against trust. Loving a man who didn't believe in love. If marriage was supposed to feel like belonging, then Anaya was failing at it. Every morning, she woke up before the sun, not because she had to, but because sleep no longer felt safe. The silence of the Rathore mansion pressed against her chest the moment she opened her eyes. The house was always awake, yet it never felt alive. She moved quietly, afraid of making mistakes she didn't understand yet. The staff treated her with respect, but also with distance, like people unsure whether she would last. She noticed the whispers when Aryan left without acknowledging her. She noticed the pitying looks when untouched food was cleared from the dining table. Still she tried. She learned to make his coffee exactly the way he liked it. She placed his files neatly on his desk when he forgot them. She stopped wearing bright colors after overhearing a maid say Aryan preferred neutral tones. It was exhausting, reshaping herself for someone who barely noticed. Aryan, on the other hand, noticed everything. He noticed how she waited for him. How she spoke softly, even when she had every right to be angry. How she never complained. And that unsettled him more than open rebellion ever could. One evening he came home earlier than usual. Anaya was in the living room, sitting cross-legged on the floor, sorting through old notebooks. She looked up in surprise when she heard his footsteps. "You're early," she said gently. "Why aren't you asleep?" he asked, ignoring her comment. "I was just organizing," she replied, gesturing to the notebooks. "They're from the orphanage. I thought I'd—" "Why keep trash from the past?" Aryan interrupted coldly. Her fingers froze. "They're memories," she said after a moment. "They remind me where I came from." "That's exactly why you should forget them," he said. "People don't survive by holding on to weakness." Anaya looked down, nodding. She always nodded. Later that night, she gathered courage again. They were standing in the kitchen, the space between them thick with unsaid things. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked quietly. Aryan didn't look at her. "You exist," he replied. The words sliced deep. "I'm trying to make this work," she said, her voice trembling despite her effort to stay calm. "We're married. We should at least talk." "Marriage doesn't guarantee honesty," Aryan snapped. "It guarantees opportunity. And I won't be fooled again." She stared at him, confused. "Fooled by who?" His eyes darkened. "That's none of your business." The accusations started small. "You were on the phone late." "Who were you meeting today?" "Why do you need to leave the house so often?" At first, Anaya answered patiently. Then carefully. Then fearfully. One afternoon, Aryan came home furious, a document clenched in his hand. "You opened a bank account?" he demanded. "Yes," Anaya said softly. "For savings. I didn't want to." "With whose permission?" he interrupted. "I didn't think I needed." "That's exactly the problem," he said sharply. "You think too much. You plan too much." Her chest tightened. "I just wanted something of my own," she whispered. "Or something to escape with?" he shot back. The silence that followed was unbearable. Anaya felt something break inside her, not loudly, but painfully, like glass cracking under pressure. That night, Aryan didn't come home. Anaya waited. She sat on the couch with the lights dimmed, her knees pulled close to her chest. Midnight passed. Then 1 a.m. Then 2. She imagined accidents. Imagined him hurt. Imagined apologizing for things she didn't understand. When he finally returned, the smell of alcohol followed him. "You're still awake?" he asked mockingly. "I was worried," she said honestly. "Don't be," he replied coldly. "You don't get paid for that." Something inside her snapped. "I'm not your enemy," she said, her voice breaking. "I've never hurt you." Aryan stopped. For a brief second she thought she saw hesitation. Then his expression hardened. That's what scares me, he said. People who pretend to be harmless always are. She took a step back. I don't pretend, she whispered. You don't need to, he replied. I already know what you want. What do you think I want? She asked, tears spilling freely now. My name, he said. My power. My empire. Her hands trembled. I just want a family, she said again. Aryan laughed bitterly. That word again, he muttered. Family is where people learn how to destroy you slowly. That night, Anaya slept on the floor beside the bed. Not because he told her to, but because the distance felt safer. She stared at the ceiling, her heart aching with questions she was too afraid to ask. How long can love survive without trust? How much pain can silence hide? In his office, Aryan poured another drink. He told himself he was protecting himself. That suspicion was safer than hope. That breaking her was better than being broken again. But as he closed his eyes, the image of Anaya sitting silently on the floor, small, wounded, still trying, refused to leave him. And for the first time, doubt crept into his certainty. The evidence that destroyed her. The first sign of the storm came disguised as an ordinary day. Anaya woke up with a strange heaviness in her chest, the kind that made breathing feel like work. She tried to shake it off as she got dressed, choosing a simple cream-colored kurta and tying her hair back neatly. She had learned not to draw attention to herself. In the Rathore mansion, invisibility felt safer. She left the house that morning with a quiet determination. For weeks, she had been working with a legal aid organization that partnered with orphanages, donating part of her allowance anonymously. It made her feel useful, human, like her life wasn't just waiting and apologizing. The lawyer she was meeting, Mr. Mehta, was kind and professional, old enough to be her father. They met at a public cafe near the courthouse, discussing paperwork and funding for children who reminded her painfully of herself. She didn't know she was being watched. From across the street, a camera zoomed in. Angles were chosen carefully. Moments were selected deliberately. A laugh caught midair. An envelope changing hands. Two people leaning close over documents. Truth was irrelevant. Appearance was everything. Aryan's day unraveled faster than usual. He was already in a foul mood when his assistant hesitantly placed a black folder on his desk. Sir, you might want to see this. Aryan frowned. What is it? Security footage, the man replied carefully. From yesterday. Aryan opened the folder, and the world narrowed to a screen. There was Anaya, sitting across from a man he had never seen before. Smiling, laughing softly, accepting an envelope. Something cold wrapped around his heart. Enhance this, Aryan said tightly. The assistant nodded, pulling up a video clip. The footage played, short, sharp, damning. Anaya glancing around, lowering her voice, sliding the envelope into her bag. Aryan's jaw clenched. How long has this been happening? He asked. We're not sure, the assistant replied. But this wasn't the only clip. Aryan didn't hear the rest. All he could see was confirmation of everything he had feared. When Aryan came home that evening, the house seemed to sense the danger. Anaya was in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared dinner. She turned when she heard his footsteps and smiled, hopeful. You're home early, she said. I made your favorite. The folder hit the counter with a loud slap. Explain this. Her smile faded. She looked down, confused, and opened the folder. The color drained from her face. This, she stammered. That's not what it looks like. Aryan laughed, but there was no humor in it. That sentence, he said coldly, is every liar's favorite. She shook her head desperately. That man is a lawyer. I was donating. To whom? Aryan snapped. With whose money? My allowance, she replied quickly. I wanted to help. You wanted to hide, he cut in sharply. You went behind my back. I didn't think. Exactly, he shouted. You never think about consequences. Anaya's eyes filled with tears. I didn't betray you, she whispered. Aryan stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. Do you think I'm blind? Do you think I don't recognize manipulation when I see it? She reached for him instinctively. Aryan, please. Let me explain properly. Don't touch me, he snapped, stepping back as if burned. You disgust me. The word shattered something inside her. She stood frozen as he grabbed his keys and stormed toward the door. Outside, panic seized her. She ran after him barefoot, the marble floor cold beneath her feet. Aryan, please don't leave like this. He ignored her, getting into the car. She reached the parking lot just as he reversed angrily. Her foot slipped. She fell hard onto the concrete. Pain shot through her body, but she didn't cry out. She only looked up at him, pleading, broken, desperate. For a split second, their eyes met. Then Aryan drove away. Anaya stayed there for a long time. She didn't know how long. When the pain dulled, she slowly stood and made her way back inside, every step heavier than the last. She waited. She believed, foolishly, that he would come back once he calmed down. She sat on the same chair near the door, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Hours passed. Night deepened. Her phone remained silent. She didn't eat, didn't drink water. She was afraid to leave the spot, as if moving might mean missing him. By the second day, her head spun whenever she stood. Her lips were dry. Her body weak. But hope is stubborn. He'll come, she told herself. He has to. When the third night fell and the door remained closed, something inside her finally gave up. Her vision blurred. The room tilted. And Anaya collapsed onto the floor, alone, unheard, still believing in a man who had already condemned her. Miles away, Aryan sat in his office, replaying the footage again and again. Each replay hardened his resolve. He ignored the missed calls. Ignored the unease crawling under his skin. This is what trust gets you, he muttered to himself. He didn't know that while he was convincing himself of betrayal, Anaya was fighting for consciousness on a cold floor, still wearing the wedding ring he had never wanted. Truth in the emergency room. Aryan didn't go home for 2 nights. He told himself it was control, discipline, distance. He buried himself in work, letting meetings blur into each other, letting numbers and contracts drown out the unease crawling beneath his skin. Still, something felt wrong. Anaya had never gone silent before. By the third morning, his phone rang while he was reviewing documents. The caller ID made him frown. Karen. What? Aryan answered curtly. Where are you? Karen's voice was sharp, tight with anger. At work. Why? Go to City General Hospital, Karen said. Now. Aryan scoffed. This isn't funny. I'm not joking, Karen snapped. She's in the emergency room. Silence. Aryan leaned back in his chair. After betraying me, he said coldly. She's putting on a performance now? There was a pause. Then Karen's voice dropped, shaking with fury. If she dies, Aryan, he said slowly, you will live with it forever. The call ended. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and dread. Aryan walked through the sliding doors with long, controlled steps, his face unreadable. He refused to let panic show. Panic meant weakness. Karen was waiting near the emergency ward, his eyes red, his jaw tight. She collapsed from dehydration, Karen said immediately. 2 days without food or water. Aryan scoffed. She could have eaten. She chose not to. Karen grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall. You don't get to decide that, he shouted. She waited for you. In the same chair. She didn't move because she thought you'd come back. Aryan froze. That's not all, Karen continued, pulling out his phone. I checked the footage. The real footage. He pressed play. This time, the video told a different story. The same cafe. The same man. But this time, the audio was clear. Here are the donation documents, Mrs. Rothor, the lawyer said. You're helping more children than you realize. Anaya smiled softly. I just want them to feel safe. Aryan's throat closed. She followed you that night, Karen added bitterly. She was trying to explain. She slipped and fell. The guard found her hours later. Aryan's knees felt weak. Inside the ICU, machines hummed steadily. Anaya lay pale against white sheets, for lines in her arms. Her lips were cracked. Dark circles framed her eyes. She looked small, fragile. Aryan took a step forward, then another, as if approaching something sacred and broken. "I didn't mean to," he whispered, but the words collapsed in his throat. The doctor approached quietly. "Severe dehydration. Physical exhaustion. Emotional shock," she said. "She's stable now, but barely." Aryan swallowed hard. "When will she wake up?" he asked. "We don't know," the doctor replied honestly. "She gave up fighting." Those words crushed him. Hours passed. Aryan sat beside her bed, holding her cold hand, memories replaying in cruel clarity. Her soft voice. Her patience. Her quiet endurance. "I was wrong," he whispered. "I should have listened." His phone buzzed, but he ignored it. Nothing mattered except the woman lying motionless before him. When Anaya finally stirred, Aryan's breath caught. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused. "Aryan," she whispered. Tears filled his eyes instantly. "I'm here," he said hoarsely. "I'm sorry. I was blind. I was cruel." She turned her face away weakly. "I didn't betray you," she said faintly. "I just wanted to help." "I know," he choked. "I know now." She closed her eyes. "That hurts more," she whispered. "Knowing you believed it so easily." Aryan bowed his head, shame flooding him. Days passed. Aryan didn't leave the hospital. He slept in the chair. Brought her books. Helped her walk when she was strong enough. Apologized over and over. But Anaya's eyes had changed. She spoke less. Smiled less. Trusted not at all. One afternoon she finally looked at him. "You destroyed something," she said calmly. "And I don't know if it can be fixed." Aryan nodded. "I'll accept whatever you decide," he said. "Even if it's leaving me." She didn't answer. But for the first time since their wedding, Aryan was afraid, not of betrayal, but of losing the only person who had ever loved him without conditions. When regret isn't enough. Anaya recovered slowly. Not because her body couldn't heal, but because her heart didn't know how to. Each morning in the hospital began the same way. Nurses checking vitals, doctors adjusting drips, Aryan sitting quietly in the corner as if afraid to breathe too loudly. He brought fresh flowers every day, though Anaya never looked at them. He brought books she didn't open. He brought apologies that came too late. "I'm sorry," he said often. Sometimes whispered. Sometimes broken. Anaya listened without responding. The silence between them had changed. It was no longer heavy with fear, it was empty. Detached. And that terrified Aryan more than anger ever could. When Anaya was discharged, Aryan insisted she return to the mansion. "You need rest," he said gently. "You need care." She nodded, too tired to argue. But when they arrived home, the house felt unfamiliar. The same walls. The same rooms. Yet everything had shifted. Anaya avoided the bedroom. She slept in the guest room instead, closing the door softly every night. Aryan never questioned it. He had learned the cost of forcing anything. He tried to fix things the only way he knew how, through actions. He canceled meetings to be home early. Learned to cook simple meals for her. Sat beside her without speaking, offering presence instead of pressure. One evening, as she slowly ate soup at the dining table, Aryan finally spoke. "Do you hate me?" he asked quietly. Anaya paused, then shook her head. "I don't hate you," she said honestly. "I just don't feel safe anymore." The words struck deeper than anger. "I never meant to hurt you," he whispered. "I know," she replied. "That's what makes it worse." At night, Aryan lay awake, haunted by memories. Her fall in the parking lot. Her pale face in the ICU. Her voice when she said she just wanted a family. Regret wrapped around him like a suffocating fog. He realized something terrifying. Losing her trust hurt more than losing her love. Weeks passed. Anaya grew physically stronger. Emotionally, she withdrew further. She began taking walks alone. Reading in quiet corners. Writing in a journal she kept hidden. Aryan noticed. "You're pulling away," he said one afternoon. She met his eyes calmly. "I'm finding myself." He nodded, swallowing the ache. "I'll wait," he said. She didn't promise anything. One evening, Anaya stood in his office doorway. "I want to talk," she said. Aryan straightened immediately. "I need space," she continued. "I need to remember who I was before I became afraid in my own home." His chest tightened. "Are you leaving?" he asked. She hesitated. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I know I can't stay like this." Aryan took a deep breath. "Then I'll help you," he said quietly. Her eyes widened. "You don't have to." "I do," he interrupted gently. "If I truly love you, I'll let you heal, even if it costs me." Something flickered in her eyes. Not forgiveness, but respect. That night, Aryan packed her things himself. Not in anger. Not in control. But with care. He arranged therapy appointments. Enrolled her in a course she had once mentioned wanting to study. Set up a separate apartment under her name. When she realized what he had done, Anaya cried, not from pain, but from confusion. "You're letting me go," she whispered. "Yes," Aryan replied. "Because keeping you broken would be the real betrayal." The day Anaya left, the mansion fell silent. Aryan watched from the doorway as she stepped into the car. She turned back once. "I don't know what the future holds," she said. "But thank you for not stopping me." He nodded. "I'll be here," he replied, "whether you come back or not." The car drove away. Aryan stood there long after it disappeared, realizing that love wasn't about possession. It was about accountability. And sometimes, letting go was the first step toward becoming someone worthy of forgiveness. Learning to breathe again. Life without Aryan felt strange to Anaya. Not because she missed the pain, but because for the first time in months, her thoughts were her own. The small apartment Aryan had arranged for her was modest and quiet, tucked away from the noise of the city. Sunlight poured in through wide windows every morning, and for the first time since her marriage, Anaya woke without fear. She took deep breaths. She slept through the night. And slowly she began to heal. Her days found rhythm. She attended therapy sessions twice a week, where she spoke about trust, fear, and the invisible scars people carried. She enrolled in a social work program, driven by a desire to protect children like the one she used to be. The classes challenged her, grounded her, and reminded her that she was more than someone's wife. She made friends. Real ones. People who laughed easily, who asked about her opinions, who didn't look at her with suspicion. And that mattered more than she had expected. Aryan's life, meanwhile, had collapsed into silence. The mansion echoed now. Rooms once ignored felt unbearably large. He stopped coming home late, not because he wanted to be early, but because there was nowhere else he wanted to be. Work no longer distracted him. He attended therapy too, though it took weeks before he could admit how deeply he had failed. "I punish people before they can hurt me," he confessed one day. "And I destroyed the one person who never tried to." The truth settled painfully. He changed, not loudly, not dramatically, but consistently. He stopped monitoring Anaya's life, refusing to invade the space he had promised her. He supported her from a distance, anonymously covering tuition fees and living expenses without interfering. Sometimes he wrote letters. He never sent them. Months passed. Anaya stood taller now. Her eyes were clearer. Her laughter came easier. One afternoon, while volunteering at an orphanage, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "You're good with them," Aryan said softly. She turned, startled. He looked different. Less sharp. Less guarded. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said calmly. "I won't stay long," he replied. "I just wanted to see if you were okay." She studied him for a moment. "I am," she said honestly. "Are you?" Aryan exhaled. "I'm trying to be." They walked together quietly through the courtyard, no tension, no accusations. Just two people sharing space again. "I never apologized properly," Aryan said after a while. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just want you to know, I understand now." Anaya nodded. "That matters," she replied. "But healing doesn't happen on someone else's timeline." "I know," he said. "I'll wait, even if it takes years." She looked at him, then really looked at him. The man before her wasn't the one who had accused her without listening. He was broken too. That evening, Anaya sat on her balcony, watching the city lights flicker on one by one. She realized something important. She didn't need Aryan. And that changed everything. Because love chosen freely felt different from love endured. For the first time, she imagined a future not defined by fear. A future where trust was rebuilt slowly. Or maybe not rebuilt at all. But the choice was hers now. Aryan watched from a distance as Anaya laughed with children, her joy genuine. He smiled sadly. If loving her meant never having her again, he would accept it. Because real love, he had learned, did not cage. It waited. Choosing each other again. Anaya did not plan to fall in love again. It happened slowly, the way healing always does, quietly without permission. Months after that day at the orphanage, Aryan remained a distant presence in her life. He never crossed boundaries. Never demanded answers. Never asked her to return. He simply existed somewhere in the background, like a chapter she had finished reading but hadn't yet shelved. That restraint mattered. It showed her who he was becoming. Anaya focused on herself. She completed her course with distinction, started working with a non-profit organization, and finally felt something she had never felt before: pride. Real pride. Not borrowed from someone else's name. One evening, after a long day, she found a familiar envelope slipped under her apartment door. No name. No pressure. Inside was a simple invitation. Dinner. No expectations. One conversation. She stared at the card for a long time. Then, after a deep breath, she said yes. The restaurant was quiet, warm, understated. Aryan stood when she arrived, his nervousness visible in the way he clasped his hands together. "Thank you for coming," he said. She nodded. "Thank you for asking," carefully. They smiled softly. Dinner passed without tension. They talked about work, about the children she helped, about his decision to step down from day-to-day operations at the company to focus on ethical restructuring. "I realized power doesn't mean control," he said. "It means responsibility." She watched him closely. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was confessing. After dinner, they walked outside, the city calm around them. "I need to say this clearly," Aryan said, stopping under a streetlight. "I don't want the past erased. I want it acknowledged." She waited. "I broke you," he continued. "And I will spend the rest of my life making sure I never become that man again, whether you're with me or not." Anaya felt tears sting her eyes. "I don't trust easily anymore," she said. "I might never love the way I used to." "That's okay," Aryan replied. "I don't need the old version of you. I respect the woman you are now." The words settled gently. Not like a demand. Like an offering. Weeks passed. They met occasionally. Books. Conversations. No labels. No promises. Trust rebuilt itself in small, fragile moments. Aryan showed up when he said he would. Listened without interrupting. Apologized when he was wrong. And Anaya noticed something else. She felt safe. One evening, sitting on her balcony, she realized she wasn't afraid of him anymore. That was love's quiet return. The decision came on an ordinary day. Anaya stood outside the Rathor mansion, the place that once suffocated her. Aryan met her at the gate, surprise flashing across his face. "I'm not here to move back," she said gently. "I'm here to choose." He didn't speak. "I choose to try," she continued. "Not because I need you, but because I want to see what we can become, slowly." Aryan's breath trembled. "Thank you," he whispered. "I won't rush you. Ever." She smiled. "That's why I came." They didn't return to the old marriage. They built a new one. With boundaries. With honesty. With consent. Love came back, not as obsession, but as partnership. And for the first time, neither of them felt trapped. Anaya learned that family wasn't something you begged for. It was something you built, with someone willing to listen. Aryan learned that love wasn't a weakness. It was courage. Some apologies come too late. Some truths arrive after the damage is done. And some love stories only survive if both people choose to heal. This was not just a story. It was a lesson.